I'm recording here. I'm gonna record it in Panopto as well. No, I don't think that. Right. So I am recording it on Zoom and in Panopto just in case. Um, right. So, well, the lecture for today is called Introduction to Sensory and Motor Pathways. And as I have said, this is the first time that we're doing this for dentistry in this new program. So I'm hoping that it is helpful for you guys. And, so the objectives for today are to recognize the major features of the anatomy of the brain and spinal cord, describe the basic features of sensory and motor pathways, describe the various sensory pathways of proprioception, temperature, touch, and pain, and to discriminate between conscious and subconscious pathways. Relate the clinical patterns of sensory loss to dermatomes, cranial nerves, and spinal segments. Before you guys leave, trying to think how can I give you the, I'm gonna give you the code for the attendance. Right. Um, as I said before, please, if you have any question, just unmute yourself because I can't be reading during the session. So the nervous system is the portion in the middle. Can you see this cursor? Can you see this? The pointer.
Yes.
Thank you. Right. So there are four types of tissues in the body. So any type of cells that we have will be made of either nervous tissue, connective tissue, epithelium, or muscles. That's what you're looking in your histology workshops. So, for example, the epithelial tissues are just little cells that will be making the skin, for example, the mucosa, and they will be varying. Then we have the connective tissue that will give the blood supply, the and will give nutrition to the epithelium. Then we have muscles, like muscles of the heart, etc. And finally, we have the nervous tissue. So the most basic cell in the nervous tissue will be a neuron, and we will talk about that in a while. So these neurons will be located in different parts. They will be in the central nervous system, which is the green portion here, or in the peripheral nervous system. So that's the way we can classify the nervous system, by central, just in the center, or the peripheral nervous system, the one that goes to the periphery, which is the one that is located in the central nervous system, or the structures located in the central nervous system. We have the brain, we have the brainstem, the spinal cord. And in the peripheral nervous system, we will have the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves. So the nerves that will go and give the innervation to the muscles, to the skin, etc.
Right.
If we look at the different structures here, we have the brain. Then we have the spinal cord. So that is the spinal cord. When we look at the brain, make your life easier, and if you need to identify it in the prosectorium, identify this structure. That is the cerebellum. So that is always going to be located posteriorly or in the back. And this is the frontal lobe, located more anteriorly. So we have the brain, spinal cord, cerebellum, sorry. This is the brain stem, so just that little portion, and then we have the spinal cord going inferiorly. So that is the spinal cord. And the spinal cord has been sectioned here, like transversely. And you can see those transverse sections, so cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. That is how it will look if we have a transverse section of the spinal cord. Again, this is the transverse section of the spinal cord. And we talk about gray matter and white matter whenever we are describing the different regions of the nervous system. So we have gray matter here in the center of the spinal cord and white matter in the periphery. Now, anyone knows what is gray matter? If anyone can unmute and tell me. What is gray matter? No?
Unmyelinated neurons.
So that is white matter. That is perfect. So that is what I'm trying to look for. Whenever we have, you talk about the nervous tissue, we talk about cell body, you have the dendrites, and then you have myelinated axon. So that is where the information is traveling through. And then you have the terminal bottom there of the neuron. If we have a collection of cell bodies like this, so a lot of cell bodies together, that will be gray matter. And if we have a lot of axons, so where the information is traveling through, we will have white matter. So that is, remember, gray matter collection, a synonymous of gray matter or a definition for gray matter is collection of cell bodies. And white matter, you will have collection of myelinated axons. This collection of cell bodies can be either in the central nervous system or in the peripheral nervous system. So when you have this gray matter in the central nervous system, we call it as a nucleus. And when we have this gray matter in the peripheral nervous system, we call it a ganglion. Okay? So again, gray matter located in the central nervous system is known as a nucleus. And gray matter, this collection of cell bodies now that are located in the peripheral nervous system, we talk about a ganglion. Any questions until there? No? Right, so this is a transverse section of the spinal cord, as we were saying. Here we have gray matter in the center of the spinal cord. And this is just then collection of cell bodies. Now, here we have white matter. And this is where the information will be traveling through. If we know that the information is, for example, sensory, the information will be, something will touch your hand, let's say, and this information will have to go to your brain. So it will be coming from here, it will enter the spinal cord, and then it will ascend to the brain. That's why it's called ascending tract. Now, if we want to talk about motor pathways, that means that we will move skeletal muscles. So muscles like the biceps, or in the gym when we want to move the legs, quadriceps or hamstrings, whatever. So you want to do that movement that is voluntary. So it comes from the brain, and then it will descend through the spinal cord to be able to reach your lower limbs. Okay, so that's why the sensory pathways are known as ascending tracts, and the motor pathways are known as descending tracts. And then this diagram taken from Crossman and Neary is showing us some types of ascending tracts in here in the left, and some types of descending tracts here in the right. Now, they are just highlighting the ascending tracts here and the descending tracts in the right hand side, but that doesn't mean that they won't be here. So everything is in both sides, right and left. So the way I imagine this is like the spaghettis in a bag. So this will be one spaghetti, bag of spaghettis. This will be another bag of spaghettis, and this will be another bag of spaghetti. So if we look at them, if you cut it in the transverse section, you will have like points, point, like circle, 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 circle of pastas. Now, if you look at this from like a lateral view, you will have the pasta or the bags like this. Sorry. And then you will have another bag here, like that. And the same here. So you will have one type of information here, another type of information here, etc. So that is how to understand how these ascending tracts will be going through in these ascending neurons or axons. Oh, my chest, sorry. Yeah, that's it. That is there any question from here? Because we will be moving from this image in the next slides. So if you have any question, let me know now. Nothing? Right, so we will talk about the sensory pathways now. And I know that this is very, very, all the words that you may hear are unknown for you. So I know that. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. So here we have the same structures we have been talking about. So this is a transverse section of the spinal cord. We have in the center, this is gray matter. So these are the cell bodies of our neurons. And then here we have, remember, our bags of pasta. So they will be running here, but this is only a transverse section. Remember that this will be running like that to be able to reach the brain. So this is the same diagram as this one. So we have in the information entering and ascending, 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 and going to the brain. So imagine, I'm gonna show it with a spinal nerve because that is easier. So if you have your hand here and you feel some pain, so there is something there in your hand or fire, temperature, whatever, some receptors will feel this and will enter this information in the spinal nerve. The information will go in the dorsal root of the spinal nerve. Here we have a ganglion. And as we said before, ganglions are a collection of cell bodies. So this is where the cell body of this neuron will be located. And then this one will enter the spinal cord. That is how they enter the spinal cord. Now, sensory neurons, remember that they have 3 neurons in the system. So we have one here in light blue, another in purple, and another in green. So just remember that the sensory neurons, I will be explaining this as we go through, but the sensories are 3 neurons. And the motor pathways, we have 2 neurons. So this is our first order neuron or the first sensory neuron with the cell bodies located in the ganglion. And then this one will bring the information here to the spinal cord and will synapse here. Why here? Because here is where we have cell bodies. So here we have cell bodies of the second neuron, or also known as second order neuron. This one will cross the center and then will go up to the spinal cord, to the brain, sorry. In the brain, we have, for example, thalamus. I am explaining this so you cannot, when you read, it's not unknown, but you won't need this much detail. So just try to go with me so it's more understandable. This one will go to the brain, and in the brain, we have some collection of cell bodies like the thalamus. That is a nucleus, so collection of cell bodies. And this is where you will have the second synapse, and it will pass the information, and this one will take it then to the cortex. And that is where we will process the information. So just showing the same as we said here, but in this diagram. So it's easier for you when you look at it. This sensory pathway is known as spinothalamic. And to make it easier, why it's called spinothalamic? Because it's going from the spinal cord to the thalamus. And the thalamus is located in the brain. It's one of the nucleus located in the brain. So it has cell bodies. So so the information is coming from spinal nerve, spinal cord, thalamus. So it's ascending, and you know that is sensory. What information we have here? Pain, temperature, non-discriminative touch, for example. So if the patient feels pain, it's using this pathway. Here we have the first order neuron. The cell bodies are located in the periphery, so we know they are located in this ganglion. This first order neuron will enter the spinal cord and will synapse here, and then this one will ascend and synapse with the third order neuron in the thalamus, because that is where we have all this collection of cell bodies. From the thalamus, the third order neuron will take the information to the cortex. Okay, that is how this is like the most basic type of sensory pathways. So that's why I'm explaining it. So that's how they will ascend to the brain through 3 types of neurons. Then we're talking about things that are conscious, to the conscious level, but the cerebellum makes things a bit easier, so we will just need 2 neurons in that pathway when we talk about, for example, proprioception. And proprioception is the information that where your body is located. So if you close your eyes and I touch your hand, for example, or I lift your hand, you will know where your hand is. You will know that it's a bit more lifted. So even if you're not looking at it, you know where the parts of your body are located. That is kind of proprioception. And that information is taken by the cerebellum. The cerebellum controls that information. So for that, we don't need this information to be conscious. Therefore, we don't need it to go to the brain. So we only use 2 neurons. So here you have 1, and there you have 2. That's all you need to know. Okay, so this is an example here. This person walking in this rope and like with unconsciousness, knowing where the part of his body are located. Now, I am explaining you that pathway so you understand the trigeminothalamic, and this is the one that is important for you in your clinical practice. So there are some cranial nerves that take sensory information located in the head and neck. So those are 3, 7, sorry, 5, 7, 9, and 10. So we will have here, this is general sensory. So we have proprioception there. Entering here, this one will then synapse with the second order neuron, and then in the thalamus, they will go ascend again. So things to remember here. We will use, again, if this is from the trigeminal nerve to the thalamus, they are ascending pathways. This is absolutely the same as we were talking before. So we will use 3 neurons. In here, we have the something that is called the trigeminal ganglion. And that is, as we know now, a ganglion. So that is where the cell bodies will be located. So for example, I'm feeling someone touching my face. So that information will be coming here. The cell bodies will be located in the trigeminal ganglion, and this information will enter through the brainstem. And here we have more cell bodies. So this is in the trigeminal nucleus. So this is where they will synapse and go then to the thalamus, as the name says. And in the thalamus, we have collection of cell bodies. So this is where the synapse will occur. So second order neuron will go to the thalamus, and the thalamus will take this information to the cortex and make it conscious. So that is, for example, if there is a leaf or is a cotton or something, and you feel like it's itchy, or you feel like, oh, I have something in my face, that is how we make it conscious. Any questions until here? Nothing. I know these are all new terms, so hopefully when you look at this lecture slowly, everything will make sense. So the trigeminal nerve is the one of the cranial nerves, and it's called trigeminal because it has 3 main branches. So one of them is for like the eye region, the other one is for like the maxillary region, and the other one is for the mandibular region. We will see this in the next semester as well, but just why this one is called trigeminal. And that is how the trigeminal nerve innervates the face. You don't need to know this much now. So this is what we were looking at in the anatomy practical the other day. We have the brain, and we have structures here that are, how can I explain it? Like the sulci or fissures are these like indentions in the brain. This one as well here. Whereas these like bumps in the road, those are called gyrus. Sorry, I was moving the board. So this is the main one, main sulcus. And that is known as the central sulcus. The central sulcus goes to the midline. That's how to recognize this one. And it's the one that goes like down, 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 separating the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe posteriorly. The central sulcus is related to one gyrus anteriorly and another one posteriorly. And in anatomy, they make everything like the relations and they put the names. So this one is called precentral gyrus because it's located anterior to the central sulcus. And this one is called post-central gyrus because it's posterior to the central sulcus. So why they make this difference and why the central sulcus is so important? As we said, because it gives us these 2 gyrus. It also gives us this this lobe here. So this is the frontal lobe, and this here is the parietal lobe. I try to remember everything like that is located more ventrally or anterior as motor, and everything that is located posteriorly, like the dorsal root ganglion, for example, as sensory. That's the way I remember. So this one here, this gyrus and this lobe are in relation to primary motor cortex, as it says here. And the postcentral gyrus is related to primary sensory cortex. Okay, and is located in the parietal lobe. So this is where the information is received, and as we said before, is taken to a conscious level. Now, we were showing you in the anatomy practical this kind of like white matter, and they just have different name, again, depending where they are located. In the spinal cord, you saw that the orientation of the way the gray matter and the white matter are located is that you have always, in the spinal cord, the gray matter located in the center or the white matter located in the periphery. Whereas here in the brain, you have gray matter in the periphery, white matter in the center, but also you have collections of cell bodies like interspersed with the white matter. And this collection of cell bodies, because they are in the central nervous system, as we talked before, they are the nucleus. So this is a nucleus, this is a nucleus, this is a nucleus. And again, they will put different names. You don't need to know them at this stage. I'm giving you an example now. This is the thalamus. And the white matter takes information to different places. So that is absolutely what you know from before. Axons will take the information from one place to another. So for example, here, it's taking the information from one side of the brain to another side of the brain through this structure. And here as well, it's taking the information like ascending or descending. It's just where the information will be traveling through. And you will need read about this in the later on as well. So you may have seen this before. This is like the homunculus. So that is how the information is like located or related here in the brain. So for example, the feet are located here, our region. So the face will be located more laterally. So this is sensory, how it will be perceived in the brain. And here I'm leaving these two images. So later on you can do a screenshot, for example, and you can look how they ascend. What is the difference with the spinocerebellar? That this one only has two neurons, for example. This. So continue with the brain now. But now we are going to talk a little bit as well of the motor systems. So this is the motor homunculus. So the face as well is very similar to the other one, both homunculus. And as you can see, the face in here is as well like in the lateral portions. So I just wanted to show you how they are located. One difference, for example, so you will know that there are minor differences that at this stage, obviously, you don't need to know, is like the genitalia are located here in the center in the sensory, whereas here, like, they will be located more to the upper regions. That is one of an example. Um, so, as we were talking previously, we have as well descending tracts. So the descending tracts are also known as the motor pathways, and the motor pathways have only two neurons. These neurons are known as upper motor neuron because it's located more superiorly, and the lower motor neuron. The most basic one in the human being, it's known as corticospinal. And again, I'm putting these ones so you can understand where they come from. So cortical, because it comes from the cortex. So we create this information and then it goes into the spinal cord and then the spinal nerve. So this one will go to innervate the skeletal muscles of the limbs and the trunk. Now, how? So we create this information in the cortex. It will descend, descend, descend. So remember here in the white, that is gray matter. And then here we have this kind of the way I imagine them, like bags of spaghettis running down, 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 down. And then they reach the spinal cord. And here in the spinal cord, we have this collection of cell bodies. So this is where they will synapse with the lower motor neuron, and the lower motor neuron will take this information to the neuromuscular junction in the specific muscle that we want to move. So that is the difference with the previous one. Any questions from this one? No? Right. So remember that is just the same. And I put this diagram to show you that you will have here the information, as we said, from the cortex. So cell body, upper motor neuron there. And then we have white matter that will come here to collection of cell bodies that we have here. And here will be the synapses with the lower motor neuron. So this is the cell body of the lower motor neuron. And then this axon of lower motor neurons will go in the spinal nerve. And that is known as the ventral root. So that is taking motor information. So the same, and you will see this in next semester as well. So to be able to innervate the muscles of the head and neck, for example, there is another pathway that is called corticobulbar or corticonuclear. So that is the same. So why? Because they go from the cortex to the different nuclei of the cranial nerves. So you will find this, and I don't want to mess too much with this one. I don't want to confuse you. I don't want you to learn this now, like the different names. No, I'm just showing you how they are located in the brainstem. So you will have collection of cell bodies, and they are nucleus because they are located in the central nervous system. So we will have from the cortex in the brain, the cell body of the upper motor neuron that will come down now and synapse here in this nucleus. And from here, they will go to innervate the specific neuron. So like this. So this is a simplified diagram of that. So we have the information generated here in the cell body. And from here, we have the gray matter. Now we will have the axons, so where the information is traveling through the white matter and going to synapse now with the cell body of the lower motor neuron, and this one will take it into the cranial nerve. That makes hopefully a little bit more sense. Time is it? 10 more minutes. So is there any questions? Now, don't leave, please. I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm gonna stop recording.